Hi everyone, good afternoon, welcome. Hope you've had a chance to have your lunch or you're eating it in the background. I'm Hazel Williams, I'm Director at Regen. It's a real pleasure to welcome you to today's training, which is delivered with the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero and GB Energy. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We know how stretched many local authority planning teams are, and we really value your time and engagement today. The idea is that today is an interactive session that we will use a bit of Mentimeter, we'll use the chat, we'll use the Q&A function. The session is designed to be practical and supportive, and we really want it to respond to the challenges you're facing. So as I said, during the session, we'll use the Q&A function to collect your questions. We've got potentially got a lot more people joining us today. We're on about 30 at the moment. So if that number gets a lot higher, then I'll try and curate those questions into themes so that we get through as many as possible. And we'll also try and respond to your questions as we go along. For now, I'd like you to invite you to put in the chat or in the Q&A what you'd most like to address in today's session. So it might be issues you're seeing in applications, areas where you'd welcome more clarity, or challenges you're encountering in decision making. Because we're trying to make today as interactive and engaging as possible, and so I'm really keen that the guidance is as useful as possible. So let us know what those kind of challenges you're facing are, what's brought you here today, what you're keen to learn about, and that will just help steer our session a bit. So firstly, welcome to Regen. For those of you who are less familiar with Regen, I'll start with a really brief introduction. We're based in the southwest, so it's more likely that you are familiar with us than those planners in the other regions. We're here in Exeter today. Regen provides independent, evidence-led insight and advice in support of our mission to transform the UK's energy system for a net zero future. We know that a transformation of this scale will only succeed if it engages the whole of society and delivers a just transition where people and places are brought along, not left behind. Regen's a membership organisation. We've got over 200 members who share our mission, and these include clean energy developers, businesses, local authorities and community energy groups from across the UK. We also manage the electricity storage network, the industry group and collective voice of the grid scale electricity storage sector in Great Britain. And we've got Becky today representing our ESN arm. Importantly for today, supporting local authorities is really central to what we do. Our work with local authorities, whether it's energy planning or community energy capacity assessments, is really grounded in a strong belief in making the transition work for local people and places. And the guidance and today's training sits really squarely within our mission. We're really pleased to be delivering it in partnership with DESNZ and GB Energy. So planning, the role of planning and planners is central to this. Planning plays a crucial role in delivering a clean, secure and affordable energy system in the UK. The planning system is what enables energy projects to move from proposal to reality while ensuring that potential negative impacts are avoided, minimised or mitigated, and that benefits are maximised for communities and the environment both locally and nationally. Of course, you know all that as you're the planners, so we're here to help think about what's evolving in the technologies. We really recognise that local authority planners are under increasing pressure, that you've got resourcing challenges, skills shortages, growing caseloads, and it's making it harder to assess the rising number of clean energy applications, as I say, with new or rapidly evolving technologies also. So today's training is really about supporting you with the evidence and information to work on solar and battery storage applications and policy, and recognising the vital role that you play and providing practical support to help you do that role with confidence. So the purpose of the guidance, you should have received a draft copy of the guidance for planners on solar and battery energy storage systems with the joining instructions for this session. As I say, it's draft at the moment. The guidance has been developed as a practical support tool for local authority planners, and we've worked with DESNZ, with MHCLG, renewables developers, planning lawyers and local authorities to develop the guidance. It's not formal planning policy or statutory guidance, and it does not replace the National Planning Policy Framework, planning practice guidance or local development plans. Instead, it's designed to be used alongside them and your expertise. So its purpose is to provide a really clear overview of the key considerations that typically arise when assessing clean energy developments and to support consistent evidence-based decision making. So today our approach is to host an interactive session, oh, I'm on that one already, that supports you to learn about the content of the guidance, to share your experience and hear about the developer experience too. We're focused on ground-mounted solar and battery energy storage systems today, and we'll run another session on onshore wind and network infrastructure for the Southwest on Tuesday the 24th of March at 2 p.m. As you can see in the agenda, we'll start with an introduction to the policy context and then look at the guidance and issues for batteries with Rebecca Fowle, who's recently produced a fact checker on batteries for the ESN, before moving on to ground-mounted solar with our guidance author, Holly Hoban. We have some time for you to share your experience, so please use the chat for that too. We're really pleased to be joined today by Emma Garraway from Field and Natasha Worrell from British Solar Renewables, who will share their on-the-ground experience of developing projects. We're also joined by Michael Downs from Land Use Consultants, who's an experienced renewable energy expert and will be on hand to answer questions both through the Q&A function and in the panel at the end. So thank you so much to our experts for your time today. I'm going to hand over to Holly, who's going to give an overview on the evolution of policy. Thanks, Holly.
Thanks, Hazel. Yeah, so as we think today about the role of planners, it's really important to understand why the UK government is prioritising these technologies and what that means for the applications that you'll be seeing. So in December 2024, the UK government published the Clean Power Action Plan 2030, or CP30, which set some really ambitious targets to rapidly scale up both renewable generation and electricity storage. And as you can see from the targets we've included on the slide here, to meet these CP30 targets, we're going to need a significant increase in deployment of both solar and battery technologies over the next few years. And solar is one of the cheapest and fastest renewable technologies to deploy, which makes it really critical for achieving these near-term targets. And battery storage can complement solar and other renewables by storing excess electricity that they generate when generation is high and then releasing it back onto the grid when demand peaks, which helps us make a more flexible and resilient energy system. We're also seeing an increase in co-location of batteries with renewables, especially solar, which can allow for more efficient use of land and grid connections. And beyond benefits for the energy system, these projects can also support local jobs and economic growth, and many offer community benefits as well, although those aren't planning considerations. But what about beyond 2030 and looking past these particular targets? Well, we're expecting demand for electricity to double by 2050 as we move to electrified transport and heating. And in order to meet that demand, it's clear that we're going to need new energy infrastructure. So a new plan is currently being developed by the National Energy System Operator, or NESO, on behalf of the UK and devolved governments, which picks up where CP30 left off. That plan is called the Strategic Spatial Energy Plan, or SSEP, and it's going to set out a blueprint of what types of electricity generation and storage projects we need, where in the country and when, all the way out to 2050, in order to meet our demand and net zero targets. And that plan, once it's published, could have quite a significant impact on which renewable and low carbon projects get brought forward in different regions. So once it publishes new targets, that could affect the kinds of applications that you see in your area. But if we move on to the next slide, as I'm sure most people on this call will be very aware, there have been a lot of changes to the planning system in the past couple of years, and we've summarised some of those key changes here. But alongside CP30 and the SSEP, they form part of a shift towards a more strategic way of planning our energy system. That's a change away from the previous market-led approach to building electricity generation and storage and network infrastructure, and it's aiming to accelerate the delivery of a clean and secure energy system while reducing costs for consumers. And one change I'd like to just highlight on this page is that just before Christmas, a draft update to the National Planning Policy Framework was published for consultation, which set out draft wording increasing the weight given to the benefits of renewable and low carbon energy from significant to substantial. And it also directly includes batteries in the definition of low carbon energy, making it clearer that those benefits do apply to battery projects too. But for now, because that version is still in draft form and still up for consultation, when we refer to the NPPF in today's session and the draft guidance that will have been shared with you, we'll be referring to the current version, which was last updated in 2024. So if we just go on to the next slide, the last thing I just wanted to go over before passing over to Becky is the structure of the draft guidance that you should have received before this session. So, in the draft guidance, we've set out the current approach that the government is taking towards these technologies. We've given an overview of what the technologies commonly include in sites, the life cycle for developing them, and then we've discussed the relevant planning routes and planning policies before going into a bit more detail about some of the key decision making factors for each of them. So, we're going to spend some time discussing these various parts of information today. And to start us off with that, I'm going to pass over to my colleague Becky Fowl to talk a bit more about batteries.